Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm, and you are watching fifth and final part of What If Naruto Becomes Fox Knight Guardian. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto waved goodbye to the family they had just left with a happy smile. As soon as they crossed the border into river, they saw a man who was desperately trying to find help. Flashback. Please, I need help. Please, someone help me. When they saw a man, Tsunade stopped. His clothes were a mess, and his eyes were red from being tired. But he had a lot of energy because he was so desperate. The Hokage stopped with Kage, Naruto, and Hinata, all of whom had their cloak hoods up. What's going on? My wife is getting sicker, and I can't find anything to help her feel better. Tsunade became very serious in an instant. Take me to her. Naruto and Kage, stay outside and keep an eye out for anything. Hinata, you're with me. Flashback is over. Within minutes, Tsunade had found the cause of the woman's illness and cured her. Naruto and Kage were surrounded by small children wearing ragged and patched clothes. They talked and played with the kids while Hinata and Tsunade did what they could to make the dying woman comfortable. Flashback. I hope this will help with your money problems, he said, putting one hand on the ground and making hand signs. In the style of grass, Diamond Rose Bush. Then, all of a sudden, a bush grew out of the ground, and roses grew on it. The roses sparkled, and Naruto, who was already very tired, picked one of them. These diamond roses are beautiful. You should be able to take care of yourself for a while if you have them. But if you abuse this gift, the bush will die. Then he turned to Hinata and gave her the rose. Hinata looked at it for 10 seconds, then fainted, which she hadn't done in a while. Flashback is over. Naruto looked at Hinata, who was still holding on to the rose. She smiled at him and gave him a kiss on the cheek. I appreciate this. It's wonderful. Well, you really did deserve a gift like that. After all, he leaned in close, you gave me the best moment and memory of my life. Hinata looked up at him, and he stopped and turned her around to face him. Tsunade sighed in mock frustration, but she smiled as she watched the two of them. Naruto lightly touched Hinata's cheek with his thumb and said, Hinata. I don't remember many happy times in my life. And after my transformation, I thought no one would ever be left. But I was so happy when you came into the security room and told me you still thought I was human and not a monster. Hinata, when I found out how much you cared about me, and when I realized that someone I knew still thought of me as a friend, but also as much more than that. It was the best time I'd ever had. It's what I owe you. He kissed her softly and said, You are the light of my life. Hinata hugged Naruto tightly as tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. She cried tears of happiness because she knew she was so important to Naruto. She knew he loved her, but he had never told her she was so important. She whispered, I'll never let you go. I'll go wherever you go. I'm never going to let you be alone again. They broke up after a few minutes and, after looking at each other for another minute, turned to follow Tsunade and Kage with big smiles on their faces. Wow, that was sweet. But there is a time limit. Tomorrow before noon, we should be in Hei's town. The two Hanyu nodded and moved quickly behind their leaders. None of the three of them saw Naruto reach into one of his pockets and pull out the box. Madara sat on the banks of the river Hei's, which got its name from its fast rapids. The other members were watching the roads into Hei's town, waiting to see the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The Raikage and his Jinchuriki, Killer Bee, had already arrived, as had Gaara, the Suhikage, and the Mizukage. Madara was still thinking about their plan. 5 of the strongest ninjas from each of the 5 great shinobi nations, plus 2 Jinchuriki. It will be a hard fight, but I'm sure I can at least beat the Haichibi. Namikaze is strong and will be hard to deal with. Maybe Pain would like the honor of fighting him. Zetsu came out of the ground all of a sudden. Madara-sama, I found the group of people from Konoha. Naruto Namikaze is on the road with Tsunade. But there were 2 with them that I couldn't figure out. I didn't know who he was, and the other person was wearing a cloak like Namikaze's. I think the person in the cloak was a girl because Namikaze was very close to her. Madara nodded and said, Get the rest of the Akatsuki together. We need to be ready to move as soon as a chance comes up. Madara sighed as Zetsu nodded and went away. I hope that these 2 others won't throw a big wrench into my plans. Naruto was excited to see Hei's as they walked through it. It was a medium-sized town with a lot going on. The two main tourist attractions were the rapid river tours for the brave of heart and the historic Great Hall, where many peace treaties had been signed between warring daimyos in the cage. River country was naturally peaceful, so it had been a good place to sign these treaties. Tsunade led them to a huge, tall building that looked almost like a castle. As she looked up at it, she sighed happily. My grandfather brought me here when the Rai and Kei's cages got together. She smiled at Naruto and Hinata. You two should check out the gardens while we're here. It was a beautiful and quiet place. Tsunade led them to the gate, where they were met by two samurai standing at attention. After making sure they were who they said they were, the four of them were let in, and a guide came to them. Hello. My name is Kusabana. Please follow me to your rooms. The young woman led them into the hall and up a set of stairs. When they reached a hallway with doors, Kusabana pointed to two doors at the end. You can have those too. Are you going to need anything? No, thank you, Tsunade said, shaking her head. We really appreciate your help. As Kusabana walked away, Tsunade smiled in a mean way. Right. Naruto, you and Hinata should go to the room in the back. We'll have to share the other one, Kage and I. Naruto and Hinata both blushed at the thought. They had been living together, but sharing a room to sleep in was different. They were about to say something, but Tsunade had already left, and Kage just sighed. This time, I don't think we can argue with her. Oh, well, said Kage. The two Hanyu opened the door in awkward silence. It was a nice room with enough space for both of them to be comfortable. Naruto looked sheepishly at Hinata when he saw that there was only one bed set up on the floor. I hope you don't mind me sharing. Hinata was red-faced for a moment, but then she smiled and said, It's okay. I'm looking forward to waking up in your arms. Naruto also smiled, and his fear started to go away. As long as you are comfortable. Get ready, and let's go see these gardens. They put their bags down, took out everything they needed, and set it all up. Then Naruto made a shadow clone and sent it to Tsunade's room while he and Hinata went to find the gardens. After walking around for half an hour, a servant showed them where to go. They both gasped when they came out into the setting sun. The gardens were out of this world. There were almost all kinds of flowers and trees, and they went on for a long way. They both smiled at each other and started walking down the paths, stopping to look at each plant and enjoying this time together. They stopped at a bench and sat down after walking for almost an hour. Hinata was leaning against Naruto, and the two of them had their hands together. As Naruto looked around, he realized they would never forget this moment. The garden's beauty and the setting sun were perfect for what he wanted to do. He slowly turned his head toward Hinata. I just wanted to ask you something. Naruto got his thoughts together as Hinata looked up at him. I know that when we were in the academy, when we went on missions together, and even when I came back, I had no idea you loved me. I was a fool, and I am truly sorry. I really want to make it up to you for loving me and never stopping to love me. Naruto-kun, there's no need to. It's fine. Hinata-chan. I do want to do this. Slowly, he got up from the bench and took the box out of his pocket. As he kneeled in front of her, he slowly pulled the hand out of his cloak that was holding onto it. Hinata was shocked when Naruto opened the box and showed her a beautiful ring with a diamond on it. He looked right at her. Do you want to marry me? Hinata just sat there for 7.68 seconds. Then, still shocked, she gave a small nod. Naruto took her hand, smiled, and put the ring on it. As soon as he did, she came out of her shock and ran to him, crying with joy. Naruto was holding her, and all of a sudden, she pulled his head to hers, and they kissed passionately. They stood there for what seemed like hours, days, or even months, not noticing anything, not even the two happy people watching them. Well, it's about time. The little Gaki took his sweet time asking her, didn't he? Tsunade asked Kage. Yeah, I remember another blonde being the same way with one of my students. It took him an extra 3 months, though. I guess Kushina's boy showed a little more of her confidence. Both of them left, leaving the happy couple alone. The summit meeting started for real the next day. In one of the smaller meeting rooms, the 5 Kages and their bodyguards got together. Naruto looked at everyone in the room while his face was covered by a hood and a mask. Gaara sat to the left of Tsunade, near Tamari and Matsuri, who was his student when he was a genin. Behind him, Konkuro and Baki spoke in undertones to each other. On Tsunade's right, the Raikage was talking with one of his helpers. Killer Bee stood behind him with his arms crossed and all 8 of his swords sheathed at his back. Naruto didn't understand how the man could fight with all 8 of them. Killer Bee looked over, smiled, and walked over to him. "Surely you're the Fox Knight?" Naruto nodded, and all of a sudden, a bear-like hug slammed into him. Naruto said that when Killer Bee let him go, he felt his ribs snap back into place. "I owe you a lot, kid. If there's anything you need help with, let me know." Naruto nodded. "Same here. I'm sorry about your friend Yugito. I think we got some Akatsuki guys for her." Killer Bee nodded. "We'll see each other again someday, but until then, we can hurt those who killed her." Naruto gave Killer Bee a nod and shook his hand. He suddenly sensed that the man to the right of the Raikage was a little bit dangerous. The Chukage was staring at Naruto when he turned around. The Chukage had come with 10 of his Anbu, who were all standing behind him against the wall. On his right, the Mizukage was sitting still while his 5 Anbu looked around for possible dangers. The Raikage finally got up, and Killer Bee came back behind him. "I'll start, since I'm the one who called the meeting. It's been a long time since the 5 great cages met in one place. Now, we must meet again for a serious matter." He indicated Killer Bee behind him. Not too long ago, a group of people from the criminal organization Akatsuki attacked Killer Bee. They were able to knock him out and drag him away. If Konoha hadn't stepped in, Akatsuki would have taken the Haichibi from Killer Bee. "I'm here to ask for your help in stopping this threat." Tsunade, who was dressed in her Hokage robes, gave a nod. "Konoha agrees with Kumo, and we will help deal with this threat as much as we can." Gaara also nodded. "As will Suna. We've already all lost a lot because of Akatsuki." The Mizukage put his feet up. "Akatsuki hasn't hurt Kiri yet, but we know that whatever they're doing can't be good, so Kiri supports them." Everyone looked at the Chukage, who slowly moved toward them. Why should Iwa bother with this? Surely the power of 4 great nations is enough. Why do we need all 5? Tsunade got angry and stood up. "This threat is against the entire world. If we don't stop it, everyone will fall, including you and Iwa." The Chukage gave a grin. "Really? Well, I guess that's some motivation, but it's not enough for me to send my ninjas to die so that your precious Jinchuriki is safe. I need more." Gaara sighed. "What exactly do you mean by more?" The Chukage put his hands wide apart. "Simple. After this bloody battle, all I want is one thing. Promise it to me, and Iwa will gladly help you." Tsunade's body shook with fear. "What is it that you want?" When the man looked at the Fox Knight in his cloak, his eyes got hard. He, Naruto Namikaze, was on an executioner's block in Iwa because he and his father had hurt my people. Madara laughed as the Akatsuki got ready to attack. The only people they had to worry about were the ninjas inside, so they got ready for an all-out attack. So, they could easily get in and maybe even surprise the people they were after. The famous Great Hall was on. A place where people can meet in peace. Soon, blood will cover it. How funny. Tsunade, Gaara, and the Raikage all got angry at the same time. "What crimes has the Namikaze committed against you?" The Chukage looked at the tips of his nails. "Well, both Naruto and his father killed all of my ninjas over and over again. Minato was at war with your ninjas, so what did you expect? Naruto's only action against your ninjas was to kill those who were threatening Konoha. You have no right to say this. However, if you promise to give him up after the battle, I will help you." Naruto was about to say something when Hinata gently took his hand. When he turned around, she looked at him with scared eyes. He gave her a slow nod. Tsunade gave the cocky cage of Iwa the evil eye. "We'll stand up for him, even if it means going to war." Gaara's anger made the sand around him flow out. "If you try to go after this, Suna will have a lot of fun killing your people. We owe Naruto a lot, and we think of him as a hero. He is also a hero in Kumo." The Raikage was a powerful figure, but the Jinchuriki behind him was the real scary one. Even a healthy person would have died from his killer intent in the chakra that was leaking from him. The Raikage hit the table with his fist, making it break. "Kumo will help destroy you by adding its own forces." The Chukage was sitting there and watching the 3 cages. He knew where Tsunade and Gaara were coming from, but he thought the Raikage would be on his side so he could protect his Jinchuriki. The most upsetting thing was to find out that he was helping Konoha. He was about to speak when a loud explosion shook the building and stopped him. In a matter of seconds, a wall fell, and Akatsuki poured in. Madara gave the head a smile. We weren't invited to a party? That hurts. After everyone had stood there for a few seconds, everything went crazy. All of the cages and their guards pulled out their weapons or got into fighting positions. Other than the Chukage. He went behind his Anbu, who surrounded him like a wall. All of the Akatsuki laughed and then charged forward. Pain and his other selves were right next to Naruto, Hinata, Tsunade, and Kage almost right away. As he swung Samehada at the Mizukage, Kisame laughed. Madara went after Killer Bee, while Zetsu went straight for the Raikage. Konan turned around to face the group from Suna. One of Pain's minions was there to help her. Zetsu moved out of the way of one of the Raikage's punches that was coming straight for his face. As another punch came at him, he closed his plant head like a Venus flytrap to take the hit. Even though the defense was strong, it couldn't take all the damage, and Zetsu felt some of it. He is very strong. No, really? You think those muscles are just for show? Naruto moved out of the way when it looked like one of Pain's bodies was shooting its own fingers at him. He turned around, and his sword blocked the kunai that was coming at him. This fight was crazy because every Pain was moving at the same time. When he went after one, even when he was caught off guard, he was stopped. It was almost as if they were both thinking the same thing and could see everything. Yo fuzzball. Need some help? Well, meat sack, you're in a world of hurt. That's the Rinnegan, the first Jujutsu ever. The person who had that was the first ninja. Thanks for teaching me about history. Now let's hear some advice. Well, the Rinnegan lets the user use the 5 main elements. It also lets the user see what another Rinnegan user sees. For example, if you attack someone from behind and one of his friends sees you, he sees you too. But I don't think all of these people are real. I think one is the real deal and the others are some kind of mental slaves. That's exactly what I mean. He told Hinata out loud. One of these guys is telling the others what to do. Can you look for him? Hinata didn't answer because her Dokushogun was already reading everyone's thoughts, even as she used Yari to block a punch. Kage's sword pushed away a blade that was coming at him, but just as he was about to attack, he was hit by another blade and had to back up. Gaara's sand flew at Konan at a speed that was beyond human and wrapped around her. But all of a sudden, she turned into paper and slipped out. She then reformed herself in the air with paper wings. Matsuri was swinging her weapon around, and Crow was using it to shoot needles at the female Pain. She dodged both of them, and when Baki lunged at her, she jumped back. She was making signs with her hands when Matsuri attacked again, wrapping her weapon around the female Pain. Baki hit the woman with his fist, sending her back into Black Ant's open trap. It closed, and Crow fell apart, revealing his hidden blades, which then went through Ant's holes. Konkuro smirked. It's over. Kisame was busy with the Mizukage and his 5 Anbu. Even though he was by himself, he still held them back. He laughed with pure happiness. You don't know how long I've wanted to come kill you. Now I have the chance. Water style, water eruption jutsu. Suddenly, water blew out of the pipes and covered Kisame. It came out of the floor, walls, and ceilings. Then it attacked with frightening force. The Mizukage and 2 of his Anbu were able to get away, but the other 3 were caught in the blast and smashed against the wall, their spines or necks broken. Kisame laughed again and then charged, swinging his sword. Madara jumped back and just barely avoided another attack from Killer Bee. The unique sword style of the Jinchuriki was very fast and unpredictable. Even with Sharingan, he wasn't able to stay very far ahead of the attacks. He couldn't use his Sharingan to stop the Haichibi because of those stupid sunglasses. So, he would have to get rid of that problem. Naruto did a backflip and jumped over the Pain behind him by using the force of the punch to his face. He used his fox claws to cut the Pain's back, but it wasn't enough. Hinata's eyes suddenly got very big. Naruto, it's that one. His thoughts are faster than the other ones. Naruto looked at the Pain fighting Tsunade, whose red-orange hair looked like his blonde hair. Naruto nodded, and his hands made the well-known sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Suddenly, there were more than a dozen Narutos in the fight. The Rinnegan's advantage was suddenly not as good as it had been. Since each Pain was busy fighting their own enemies, they couldn't keep an eye on each other. The real Naruto went after the real Pain with two of his clones. Pain's head was almost hit by Tsunade's superpowered fist. She made an angry noise. "I'm losing my grip. I guess maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to quit soon." Pain threw a fireball at her, so she moved back. But she fell because she tripped over some trash. Pain threw another fireball, but it was blocked by the two shadow clones, who then vanished as they took the damage. Pain turned just in time to use a kunai to block Naruto's sword. Naruto smirked. "You're the all-powerful Pain? I'm a little disappointed. Your Rinnegan is good, but it's so easy to lose its advantage." Pain didn't say anything because he was focused on what he and his minions saw. It was hard to tell what was going on because each side was focused on the other. One of them fell over as Cage stabbed it in the head with an ice kunai. Two Narutos and a Hinata drove their weapons into the chest of another person, killing him. The Peens were falling apart because they couldn't keep an eye on each other. Zetsu moved back and shot a group of vines at the Raikage. They quickly wrapped around his arms, legs, and body and held him still. Zetsu was about to land his finishing blow when the Raikage sent volts of electricity up the vines and into Zetsu. It burned him all over, and he fell as a smoking corpse. The Raikage turned around and followed Madara. 3 shurikens flew by Kisame, so he moved to the side. The two Anbu who were still alive worked together to keep him on the defensive while the other got ready for the next attack. Kisame laughed as he got ready to make water clones out of the water that was still coming out of the pipes. But then the Mizukage's sword came out of his chest and cut him in half. Kisame looked at the blade on the ground and then at the man standing behind him. "I just can't believe it's you." The man gave a smirk. "Where you and Zabuza failed, I succeeded," he said. Then he took out his long, straight-bladed sword, which he could hold with both hands. Above the hilt, the blade had the mark of one of the 7 swordsmen of Kiri. Kisame went down on his knees and then his face. Gaara made a few bullets out of sand and shot them at Konan as she flew through the air. She just moved to the side, and the sand went around her. Kankuro yelled in anger, "None of us can hit her." He had used more than half of Crow's projectiles against Kana, but they had all missed or done nothing. Then, all of a sudden, her wings flapped, and paper knives shot at the Suna ninja. Gaara put up a sand shield right away to protect himself, Matsuir, and Baki. Kanuro took out Salamander, whose raised shield protected him, and Tamari. As soon as the attack stopped, Tamari jumped up and opened her fan to show all 3 moons. She hit it hard, making a huge windstorm that blew straight at Konan. Her paper wings were torn apart by the wind, and when she fell to the ground, Gaara's sand caught her. Before she could turn into paper, he quickly put her in a circle and stomped on her. As the blood seeped out, the sand slowly turned pink, then red. Pain moved out of the way as Naruto slashed at his head. Pain tried to hit Naruto in the back of the head, but Tsunade stopped him with a punch to the face. He flew back and barely landed on his feet. When he turned around, Naruto was coming at him with his sword raised. As Pain raised his kunai to block, Naruto vanished, and Pain's stomach suddenly hurt. He was cut by Naruto, but his cloak softened the blow, so it was just a flesh wound. Naruto came back, and his blade was covered in Pain's blood. The other Peens were about to die. Even though they had already killed a few clones, they were still too few. The last 2 were fighting against their enemies right next to each other. As Naruto and Tsunade came up to him, the real Pain was stuck against a wall. He started making hand signs right away. Rinnegan Art, 5-element blast. Suddenly, the circles of his Rinnegan started to spin, and chakra started to form in his hands. It was a burst of pure energy that turned rainbow-colored. Naruto's eyes got big, and as soon as the blast went off, he threw himself in front of Tsunade. When it hit them, there was a huge explosion that shook the whole hall and blew parts of the ceiling and walls off. Hinata had switched Yari for Ida and was looking at the 2 Peens when an explosion shook the hall. Hinata took her shot when the Peens were distracted for a moment. 2 arrows went right through their heads, killing them both in an instant. When she turned around, she saw that the place where Tsunade and Naruto had been standing was filled with smoke. Naruto. She ran over, but stopped when she saw 2 people coming into view. As Naruto stood there hugging Tsunade, red chakra started to swirl around him. It quickly took the shape of a fox with 8 tails and wrapped itself around him. During the attack, his regular cloak was burned, and now his tail has joined the others to make the 9th. Naruto looked up slowly at Tsunade. His eyes were in the third form of the Kitsunegan, and the mask on his face was gone, showing thickened whisker marks and canine teeth that looked like fangs. He gave her a smile. "What's up, Nei-chan?" Naruto's smile got bigger as Tsunade nodded. He turned to Pain and smiled in a cruel way. "Well, it looks like you helped me unlock all the tails." "I'd like to thank you for that," Naruto said, then disappeared and reappeared in front of Pain. "By taking your life." Naruto used his fox claws to stab Pain. Before Naruto pulled the blades out and slashed Pain's face with the right claws, all 6 blades went through his stomach. As Pain fell to the ground, the claws tore into his eyes, making him go blind. Pain shook his head as he lay there blind and badly hurt. How can this be the end? He thought, just before he died. Madara could not believe it. Everyone else in the Akatsuki had left except for him. He knew his plan had gone wrong. He moved out of the way of Killer Bee's blade slash and was able to block the Raikage's huge haymaker. Now, the others were coming toward him. He quickly turned around to escape through the hole they had made, but Naruto was standing there with his 9 tails swirling around him. "Where are you thinking you're going? I'm not done with you yet." He looked around at everyone. "Make sure he doesn't get away, because I want to look after him myself." The others nodded and moved back just enough to make room for them. Madara looked at the Hanyu in front of him. "Don't you know that with my Sharingan, I can cancel out the power of the Kyuubi?" Madara said. He tried to do that, but he couldn't get into the boy's mindscape to get rid of the Kyuubi. Naruto poked him in the eyes. "Guess you haven't heard that the Sharingan is useless against the Kitsunegan." "That's too bad, but I don't care much. How about you?" Naruto disappeared again all of a sudden, leaving behind a sonic boom. Madara instinctively leaned back, so Naruto's right hook didn't hit at all. He was able to cut off the chin of Madara's mask. The force of that shot tore off Madara's mask and turned him around. As he turned around, one of his eyes suddenly got bigger. Amaterasu. Black flames shot out of his eye at Naruto when he said this. But he tried to fight back quickly. Kyuubi Art, Element Defense Jutsu. Suddenly, each tail rose up and one of the elements came out of it. Fire, lightning, earth, water, grass, which includes forests and other things, ice, light, and darkness came together to make a barrier in front of him. When the barrier was hit by the evil black flames, they stopped. Everyone was amazed to see how hard the two fighters tried to beat each other's jutsu. Madara's left eye started to hurt, and it felt like tears were coming out of it. Naruto started to feel tired because using all 9 of his tails was too much for him to handle for a long time. They fought for a few minutes until one of them couldn't take it anymore. Madara put out the flames and shut his eye as tears started to come out of his tear duct. Naruto let go of the barrier and breathed heavily. They both looked at each other and noticed how tired they were. "You are strong, Namikaze. Very strong." "Yeah, you too, seeing as how you're a few hundred years old." "Then we should stop. Let's have one last fight to see who's stronger." Naruto nodded, and they both got ready. Madara slowly opened his eyes, and the Susanoo started to form around him. Naruto looked at the spirit of the behemoth, which slowly changed into a warrior in armor carrying a shield and a sword. Naruto faced Kyuubi and turned inward. "What do you think? This is also your way to stay alive. Rasen Shuriken, and throw everything you have left at it." Naruto nodded, closed his eyes, and put out his right hand. He called forth the Rasen Shuriken, and when Kyuubi's chakra hit it, it changed into a purple demon version. But Naruto did one more thing. The tails each did something else, and the rest of the parts joined in. Slowly, Naruto opened his eyes and looked at Madara. This is it. This is the Kyuubi and Namikaze combined technique. The demonic elemental Rasen Shuriken. The jutsu was so powerful that it was barely holding together. Naruto nodded at Madara. "This is the end," he said, and then he ran forward. Susanoo put his shield down in front of Madara and got ready to block the attack. Naruto pushed forward with his new jutsu and hit the shield with it. It held for a second, but then the combined elements suddenly broke the shield, and Naruto kept driving through, blasting through the being that was around Madara. As Naruto got closer, the founder of the Uchiha family just stood there in shock. Before the attack hit him, he whispered, "Impossible." There was a bright light that grew around them and made it hard to see. All of the people in the area were sent flying when all of a sudden, there was a huge explosion. The room and a large part of the Great Hall were both completely destroyed. Being Hanyu and Jinchuriki, Hinata and Killer Bee were able to stay awake even after they crashed into a building. Everyone else was not as lucky as the Chukage. They fell asleep because of the blast or because of how hard they hit the ground. But the cage of Iwa was able to sink into the ground and keep the blast from hurting him. His Anbu did not have as much luck. All of them died in the explosion because they were the closest to it. Hinata slowly got up from the ground, groaning in pain as she did so. It felt like one of her arms was broken, and her tail didn't feel too good either. She didn't care, though. Only Naruto did. She ran as fast as she could toward the wreckage, shouting, "Naruto!" Killer Bee, who was covered in Hachibi's chakra when the explosion happened, followed behind. The blast had scattered his swords, broken his sunglasses, and made him feel like he had dislocated a shoulder. But Hachibi would fix it right away. Naruto was sleeping on the ground in the crater that had been the meeting room. The Kyuubi's chakra was gone, so he was only left with one tail. Madara Uchiha had left no traces behind. The power of demon and elements put together had broken up his body. A figure slowly got up from the ground. As he walked up to the downed Hanyu, the Chukage smiled. He pulled out a kunai slowly, enjoying the moment. When he would put an end to the Namikaze line and Konoha's power. Your family has always been a pain in Iwa's side. For generations, Namikaze has killed our ninjas in battle. But now, with you being the last one, I will end this threat for good. He grabbed Naruto's hair and lifted the boy's head, revealing his throat. I'm just sorry that I won't be able to see the look on your face when you die. But I'll see yours. The Chukage turned around just in time to see the Juken hit him in the heart. It blew up inside his chest. Hinata saw his eyes widen in shock and pain, then roll back into his head as he coughed up blood. He fell to the ground and would never get back up. Hinata landed next to Naruto and looked him over as soon as she could. Using only one arm. Killer Bee came running up and stopped her. You'll just hurt yourself more. Let me do it. Hinata nodded as Killer Bee checked the blonde Hanyu over using what medical knowledge he had. He finally put his feet up. As far as I can tell, he's physically fine, but he'll be out for at least a week because he used so much chakra. Hinata nodded, but just to be sure, she turned on her Dokushogun. She let out a happy sigh. His chakra pathways aren't messed up. If they were, that would mean something was wrong on the inside. People were finally able to get through the wreckage at that point. Some people looked around at the damage, while others ran to help the three people. What happened here? Who did all of this? Hinata groaned. We'll explain later. Can someone help us get to a hospital? After 3 days, Hinata was back to full health and almost everyone else, except for Naruto, was back on their feet. When Tsunade woke up, she sent a message to Konoha to ask for more medical help and to let everyone know that Akatsuki was gone. The doctors and nurses came a day and a half later, led by Shizune herself. They had looked at Naruto's other wounds and done a few jutsu to help him get better. When the Iwa heard that their Chukage had been killed, they were very angry. They had asked right away for Naruto Namikaze and Hinata Hyuga's heads. Even in Iwa, people could feel how much killing intent came from the 4 remaining cages. The 4 cages of Konoha, Suna, Kiri, and Kumo said that Iwa would have to go to war with Konoha, Suna, Kiri, and Kumo if they didn't get their heads out of the nether regions they were put in. After that, Iwa gave up and picked a new Chukage in secret. Hinata sat by the bed of her fiancé and watched him sleep. Killer Bee said Naruto would wake up in a week, but Hinata knew that wasn't true. Even without Kyuubi, Naruto was still able to defy medical logic. She smiled when she saw that he was sound asleep. She played with the engagement ring on her hand by gently twisting it. Naruto suddenly moved a little and let out a painful groan. Hinata stopped moving while Naruto stirred again, then went back to sleep. She let out a sigh of sadness. Those blue eyes opened all of a sudden and looked at her. Naruto gave a small smile. He said in a painful whisper, "Good morning, beautiful." Hinata smiled and bent down to give him a kiss. "Good afternoon, sleepyhead." Naruto kept smiling. "How long did I stay away?" "It's been 3 days. You should rest some more. We're not going anywhere until you can move again." Naruto gave a nod and shut his eyes. Hinata smiled at him as he slept soundly. Sleep well. I have a feeling you won't get much rest when we get home. Naruto walked beside Hinata and held her hand as they went. A few days had passed since he woke up in the hospital. He wasn't 100% yet, but he was well enough to walk for long distances. All of the others had also gotten better, so they started the trip home. But not before the Raikage and Killer Bee gave Naruto hugs that broke his bones and thanked him. And having to pay for the damage his new technique had caused. That took some money out of Namikaze's bank account, but not a lot. Shizune was talking to Tsunade, while Kage quietly watched the medic with the dark hair. Naruto smiled and moved closer to Hinata as he did so. Looks like Kage found a girlfriend. Do you think she even knows? Hinata giggled. Maybe we should help him move along. Tsunade turned to Naruto at last. When we get back home, we still have a lot to do. We have to deal with the old council and come up with a punishment for Sasuke. There's also something I've been thinking about for a while. What is it? Tsunade gave a sigh. Well, I've been thinking about finding a replacement, and after my fight with Pain, I realize I'm losing my touch. I think it's time to retire. Naruto's eyes got big as he was shocked. You're leaving? Who will take your place? Tsunade smiled. I think I found them, but I need to think about it some more. When Naruto looked at Hinata, she smiled and gave him a hug. Don't worry. Either this time or the next, you'll be Hokage. Naruto nodded. There's one more thing we need to do. Start making plans for our wedding. Hinata smiled when she heard about it. She put her head on his shoulder for comfort. I just can't wait. Tsunade smiled. Be sure to take care of the little Gaki well, you there? Hinata's smile grew. Yes, Nei-chan is to be. Tsunade laughed at the idea. A pair of Otuto and Imouto. A few days later, the group went to Konoha. When everyone saw Naruto, they all cheered, clapped, yelled, or bowed right away. Sakura ran up to him, gave him a big hug, and yelled, "You did it. You beat Akatsuki." Guy and Lee got into position. Yosh. The flames of youth burns brightest in him. Yes, Guy-sensei. We will have to work hard to catch up to him. Kakashi came over with a happy smile on his face. Naruto, you are more than I could have hoped for. You are truly your father's son and more, he said, and then he bowed. Naruto was happy. Kakashi-sensei, thanks. As they got closer to the Hokage Tower, the cheers kept going. Tsunade took all of them to her office, where she was happy to sit down. It's good to be at home. Then she pulled out a couple of papers right away. It's not official yet, but based on how well you both did on the mission, I don't think it will be long. Naruto and Hinata, I'm promoting you both to Junin. Congratulations. Both of them looked at her with surprise, then laughed and hugged each other. Kage shook hands with Naruto. You've done a great job, Naruto. I just wish your mom could be here. Naruto looked up and smiled. In a certain way, she always is. Tsunade nodded. Well, for now, you both are free to go. Have fun, and come back here tomorrow. You'll be part of our discussion about what to do with Sasuke. They both smiled and shook their heads. Out in the open, Naruto picked up Hinata and swung her around while they both laughed. Then he bent down and kissed her. The rest of the Rookie 11 came and joined them while they were doing it. Tenten squealed when he saw the ring on Hinata's hand. Hinata, is that really what I think it is? Hinata didn't hear because she was still kissing Naruto at the time. They eventually moved apart, and that's when they saw everyone else. Tenten smiled and asked the same thing again. Hinata smiled and put out her hand, then gave a nod. Naruto-kun asked me to marry him while we were in the gardens of the Great Hall. Unfortunately, we were the last people to see it before the fight destroyed it. Ino and Tenten daydreamed about what would happen to them and the men they loved if that happened. Sakura just sighed. I really missed my chance, didn't I? But I'm happy for the both of you. Lee stopped by. Sakura-san, would you like to have lunch with me sometime? He looked at her and she smiled. As friends. I don't know if I want anything more romantic right now. Lee nodded. Yosh. Well, I mean. Naruto was happy. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty hungry. How about you? They all nodded and followed the happy couple to Ichiraku Ramen, which had started to grow as more people started to eat at Namikaze's favorite place to eat. The next day, Naruto went to the new council chamber and was there. As he did this, the heads of most of the clan members bowed, but not Hiroto Hyuga's. Naruto smiled and gave a bow in return. He had a new cloak and a mask for his face, but the hood and the mask were both down. He sat in a chair against the wall while Tsunade started the meeting. Today, we're going to talk about 4 things: the executions of the elders Kaharu, Homura, and Danzo for treason and plotting to kill everyone, Sasuke Uchiha's punishment, the creation of the Namikaze clan, and my future successor. Everyone was surprised and looked at each other. Sume Inzuka stood up in the end. Tsunade-sama, have you thought about leaving your job? Tsunade nodded. I'm not as quick or nimble as I used to be. I think it's time for me to retire to the hospital and keep teaching the doctors there. But that won't happen for a few years. In the meantime, I'm keeping an eye on a few candidates for my job, but I'm only betting on one of them. But that's another story. She took out the papers that had the orders to kill from the old council. She turned to Naruto and said, "It's already been decided. All that's left is to decide how and who. You offered to do it once. Would you like to do it?" Naruto groaned. That was before I got engaged to Hinata. I don't think she would want to see her fiancé become an executioner. Maybe the person who should have the right is the one who has been hurt the most by their actions, other than me. Tsunade took a moment to think. You mean Sasuke Uchiha? Naruto nodded. That's right. Since their actions killed members of his clan, he should have the right to kill them. Inoichi asked, but what was his punishment? Naruto groaned. It's hard. On the one hand, Kumo will want a lasting punishment or execution for what he did to Killer Bee. His actions against Konoha also demand no less. On the other hand, if we just use him to breathe the Sharingan and then kill him, that sends the message that all we care about are bloodlines, not the ninja using them. Hiroto was happy. Isn't that true, though? Naruto gave the cocky Hyuga a dirty look. If that's true, then how was it that my family were the strongest shinobi in this village, even though we didn't have a bloodline? It's not about how many techniques you know or how powerful you are. It's about how much guts and determination you have. I was last in the academy, but I beat Neji Hyuga, who was a genius and wielded the Byakugan. I beat Gaara of Suna, when Sasuke failed. Naruto looked at the people at the table. Ninjas shouldn't be thought of as strong just because they have a bloodline or come from a famous family. Instead, they should be thought of as strong because they have earned it. The other clan leader slowly agreed. Shikaku spoke up. He's right. Students from clans are always thought to be better than regular students from families. I think it's time for everyone in the village to be treated equally. Tsunade smiled. That's good, but let's get back to what we were talking about. How do we deal with Sasuke? Naruto's voice was soft. Either we must give up the Sharingan and kill him to make Kumo happy, or we can let him rejoin the ranks, but he must start as a genin and stay there until he has proven himself trustworthy. Then we can let him start rebuilding his clan and moving up, but Kumo may not be happy. Everyone nodded, and Hiroto spoke up. It would be better to kill him than risk Kumo's anger, he said. Naruto glared at the Hyuga once more. Really? And it doesn't matter that once Sasuke is gone, the Hyugas will have the most power in the village? I have an idea that will at least make Kumo happy and let us keep Sasuke alive. Let me show him what it means to be a ninja in the real world. Everyone looked at him in shock, and some of them couldn't say anything. Tsunade smiled and said, I get it. Since Kumo sees you as a hero, they would trust you to keep Sasuke in line. They won't be happy, but it shouldn't cause them too many problems. Slowly, everyone but Hiroto nodded. Tsunade took out a file and said, very well. Sasuke Uchiha will be brought back and kept at the genin level until Naruto Namikaze thinks he is ready to move up. Oh, one more thing. We've decided to give Suigetsu to Kiri because Orochimaru took him from there. Karen will be locked up because she was in charge of several of Orochimaru's experiments. As for Jugo, she smiled at Naruto. He has learned to control his powers and has been accepted into the academy. Already, he's making friends. Good, Naruto smiled. He is worthy of that much. I might also teach him one day. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Most of you, if not all, know that Hinata, who used to be part of the Hyuga clan, now has a new bloodline. She and Naruto Namikaze just got engaged. So, with the Dokushogun and the Namikaze skills together, we'd like to ask Naruto if he wants to start the Namikaze clan. I think Hinata would like to start her own clan with me, Naruto said with a soft smile. Sure. The others agreed, and Tsunade smiled. Then the Namikaze clan is born right now. Naruto, would you like to replace me? Naruto looked at the chair she pointed to and smiled. He slowly stood up, walked over to it, and sat down. Sume reached over and shook his hand, and Inoichi patted him on the back. Tsunade finished the paperwork and put it away. Then she pulled out one last set of papers. This is a list of the people who want to be Rokudame Hokage. I want to know what the council thinks about each of them. She slowly gave each list to a council member, and Naruto took his, opened it, and started to read. Jiraiya, the Sannin of the Toad. Morino, Ibiki. Namikaze, Naruto. When he saw his name, his eyes went straight to Tsunade, as did everyone else's. Tsunade smiled. Well? Are there any questions? Hiroto stood up right away and said, Tsunade-sama, you can't really think that Naruto Namikaze is ready to become Hokage, can you? He just got on the council. Yes, this is true, Tsunade said with a nod. Naruto doesn't know as much about politics as most of us here. But he has already shown that he is good at it. He's helped us get many allies, and he'll help us keep one even now. Naruto, on the other hand, has the true spirit of a Hokage. He will do everything he can to keep this village safe. I think he'll be ready once he's been on the council for a few years. Several of the others nodded, but Naruto just sat there. Tsunade-sama, are you sure? I mean, I want to be Hokage, but I know I'm not ready for it yet. Tsunade smiled and said, I wouldn't nominate you if I didn't think you were ready. Naruto just sat there and stared at the table in front of him in shock while Tsunade listened to what everyone had to say about the candidates. When they were done, Tsunade nodded and said, well, that is all. In 1 week, the people will be put to death. The meeting is over. Naruto was about to leave when Tsunade stopped him. Don't worry, she said. You'll be fine. You still have a few years to get ready. Naruto slowly nodded, and Tsunade gave him a hug. Ah, Otuto, she said. I thought you would be all happy and excited. This just shows how much you've grown up. Now, get over it. Do you think that Hinata will want to see you like this? No, Naruto said, shaking his head. Just surprising, that's all. Naruto slowly smiled. So, when do I get my student? Tsunade smirked. Today. Hinata can help you if you'd like. Then send him to training field number 10 in half an hour, Naruto said. Don't tell him who his sensei is yet. With that, Naruto disappeared, and Tsunade smiled as she turned to the Chunin outside the door. Please bring Sasuke Uchiha to me. Half an hour later, Sasuke was standing on the training field with 4 Anbu hiding in the trees nearby. He couldn't believe he was getting a second chance. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve anything. He looked around for his sensei when he was suddenly knocked off his feet. When he turned, he saw a figure appear from the ground. I think Kakashi-sensei taught you to keep your eyes on the ground. Not every attack comes from above or below. And Naruto? From now, you'll call me Naruto-sensei. Got it, Sasuke? Sasuke was shocked when he saw him. You're my teacher? Behind his mask, Naruto laughed. That's right. If you died, Kumo might ask for your death. Now, are you ready to find out what it means to be a real ninja? Sasuke just laid there, shocked. Then he slowly got up, bowed his head, and said, please, teach me. Behind his mask, Naruto smiled. Alright, first things first. 1. Don't ever question any training I give you. 2. Don't copy any of our jutsu unless we tell you to. Hinata snuck out of the trees, which surprised both the Anbu and Sasuke. Naruto hugged her as she came closer. Get to know your other teacher. Now, the third point. Don't use Mangekyu unless it's a last resort. If you don't, you'll go blind, and we'll have to train you all over again. Got it? Good, Naruto said with a grin when Sasuke nodded. Don't forget that I'm not your friend or teammate here. Since I'm your sensei, I'll treat you like one. Got it? Sasuke nodded and bowed his head again. It's an honor to be trained by you, Namikaze-san. Naruto nodded. Alright. First of all, let's run a few hundred laps, shall we? After a month. A week after training with Naruto, Sasuke agreed to kill the old council. But as he killed them, he felt nothing and neither joy nor happiness. His quest for revenge had cost him too much in life. Sasuke started to understand Naruto's pain. Everywhere he went in the village, people looked at him with cold eyes and whispered, "Traitor," and "Scum." The difference was that he deserved it. He took it all, knowing that this was his life now, and he accepted it. He also accepted the cold eyes and voices from his former comrades. He knew in his heart that he would never truly gain their trust or respect, so he did what Naruto. He walked past one person, who bumped into him. Sasuke apologized, and they went on their way. Behind him, he suddenly heard a foot hit the man's behind, followed by his angry yelling. Sasuke laughed. It might have been small and old, but the "kick me" sign was a classic. He sighed, and looked up at the sky. "What's on your mind?" Naruto showed up beside him. "Nothing much, sensei. Just taking in the view." "Really?" Naruto sighed. "We could watch the clouds go by with Shikamaru." "No," said Sasuke, shaking his head. "I wouldn't be welcome there. I'd just make things worse." "I know," Naruto said, shaking his head. "But maybe this will cheer you up," he said, holding out an invitation for Sasuke to take. Sasuke took it and opened it, and his eyes grew wide. "Sensei? You want me to be that close when you get married?" "Look, it's a sign of trust," Naruto sighed. "Would you rather be in the back where you can't see anything?" Sasuke lowered his head and said, "It's where I belong. And I say that's not true. I'm letting you know, Sasuke, that you've earned a little bit of my trust and friendship. Get over being sad and thinking you don't deserve anything, and just accept this." "What's up?" "But I should leave after the wedding," Sasuke said with a slow nod. "I would mess up the party." "It's up to you," Naruto said with a shrug. "See you tomorrow at training. Oh, one more thing. Kick me signs? Please, that's just not good enough. If you want to be a prankster, you need to step it up." As Naruto walked away, Sasuke nodded and looked at the invitation again. He gave it a small smile and put it away. December 27th, about 1.5 months after Akatsuki was defeated. All of Konoha came out to see the wedding of two of their greatest heroes, Naruto Namikaze and Hinata. The cages of Suna and Kumo and several other foreign dignitaries were there. Naruto stood at the altar in a tux, and Rock Lee was there as his best man. As the music played, Cage appeared at the end of the aisle to give Hinata away. Naruto stopped when he saw her. She wore a simple, pure white wedding kimono that brought out the color of her hair, ears, and tail. She held a bouquet of white roses. Sakura and Ino had done her makeup, but they only used a little blush, mascara, and red lipstick because Hinata wanted to keep it simple. Naruto thought that she had never looked so pretty before. Slowly, she walked up to him, and Naruto led her to the altar. Sakura stood next to her as her maid of honor, and her boyfriend of almost a month, Lee, smiled at her. Before starting the ceremony, Tsunade smiled at the couple in front of her. Naruto and Hinata exchanged wedding vows, and Tsunade got to the part of the wedding that everyone knows. "Do you, Naruto Namikaze, take this woman to love and hold through sickness and health, wealth and poverty, until death?" "I do." "And do you, Hinata, take this man to love and obey, in sickness and in health, rich or poor, until death do you part?" "I do." "Does anyone here think these two shouldn't get married?" Hitoro Hyuga opened his mouth, but Tsunade, Rock Lee, and Sakura gave him a look that shut him up. Naruto smiled, even though he didn't know what was going on. Tsunade smiled when she was done. "I now call you husband and wife. You're welcome to kiss the bride." Naruto turned to Hinata, pulled her close, and whispered, "I love you." He then gave her the most passionate kiss he could muster. Everyone cheered and clapped, and Hinata did the same. The happy couple stayed for the first few hours of the party, until Naruto and his bride left with him. That night, they did their last act of love and trust together. Many hours later, as the sun was rising, Naruto was in bed with his wife, gently stroking her side. When she sighed happily in her sleep, he smiled and moved closer to her. Naruto gave her a kiss on top of the head. Naruto said, "Thank you for being with me. You are my love, my happiness, and my light in this world." He then closed his eyes and fell asleep. Epilogue. After 15 years. The afternoon sun made Konoha shine. For someone who had been there before and went back after a long time, not much had changed. But there was a sixth face on Hokage Mountain. The face looked like the head of a Yondaime, but it had whisker marks and fox ears. The head of the Namikaze clan, Naruto Namikaze, and Rokudaime's faces. Naruto smiled as he walked through the park with his family. Hinata had a picnic basket in one arm and had the other arm around his waist. Their two kids were laughing and talking in front of them. The younger one had dark blonde hair with blue highlights. She laughed at a joke her older brother told, which made her blonde ears twitch and her tail move back and forth. She looked back at her parents, and her light blue eyes had a lavender tint like her mother's. As he ruffled her hair, her older brother smiled. He was about 13 years old and had earned a Konoha headband when he was 10 years old. His hair was indigo blue, but spiky like his dad. His blue ears and tail were less twitchy than those of his sister, but they still moved when they heard something new. His eyes were the same deep blue as the sheath of the katana he wore on his back and the foxclaw gauntlets he wore. The picnic was set up under a tree by the Namikaze family. Naruto smiled as he watched his girl, Awai, watch a butterfly fly by. Atae, pass me the tea, his mother asked. Atae gave his mother her special teapot, which had a fox-shaped spout. She started pouring tea for everyone when an Anbu showed up. The Anbu gave it to him and said, Hokage-sama, the document you asked for has arrived. Naruto nodded. Thank you. Sasuke smiled and bowed his head when he saw Naruto's happy family from behind his mask. Forgive me for interrupting. Not at all. What's going on at home? Well, as a certain Nara would say, that's troublesome. Having a harem can be a problem. How did you escape it? Hinata squeezed her husband's arm and said, I told Naru-kun that any woman who came near him would be sterilized. He was happy. That's probably what you needed, Sasuke. Now go take care of your kids. Sasuke nodded, then went away. Hinata cuddled up to him and fell asleep. I'm glad he was finally able to rebuild his clan. Naruto was happy. Yeah, I've heard that his first child is very determined. Is that true, Atae? The boy turned a little red. Yes, Nayuso can be very determined. She's also smart, skilled, and sometimes very funny. She likes to play jokes on Kakashi-sensei. Awai giggled. You like her, don't you, Ni-san? Atae just ate to hide the fact that he was embarrassed. The whole group laughed. She's a nice girl who would make a great wife. Oto, we're just friends. Naruto smiled and leaned against a tree as he listened to his family talk. As he looked up at the sky, he smiled. Life had been good. He was officially named Hokage 3 years after his wedding and 1 year after Atae was born. Tsunade retired to the hospital, where she taught a new group of medic ninjas. 2 years ago, she died peacefully in her sleep. Kage and Shizune got married and now they have 3 children. One of them had already become a chunin, and the other 2 were still in the academy. Lee and Sakura had also gotten married, and when he beat Guy in a spar, Lee was the new taijutsu master of Konoha. They already had a girl and were expecting another one. When Sasuke saved a group of ninjas who were caught in an ambush set up by Iwa Shinobi, he finally earned his trust. He had attacked the 10 Iwa ninjas by himself because he didn't care about his own life. He had almost died in the process. After that, Naruto gave him his full trust again, and Sasuke quickly moved up in the ranks and became one of Naruto's new bodyguards. Awai getting on Naruto's lap woke him up from his thoughts. What do you have on your mind, Otou? He gave her a hug and played with her hair and ears. I can't believe how lucky I am to have you all. Hinata again curled up next to him, and Atae smiled. Naruto let out a sigh of happiness. I really am lucky to have so much joy in my life. He smiled up at the sky, and a tear of happiness ran down the legendary Fox Knight's cheek.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.